Thank you, Ragekin, for the motivating words, and indeed I'll strive to improve and bring more series to the channel. Lee Jun feels the power radiating from his surroundings, which is a phenomenon that happens when one is inside a gate. Footsteps of an unknown creature seemed to patrol around. Alerted by the loud footsteps that didn't sound human, Lee Jun was drenched in cold sweat. Peeking to see what was causing the footsteps, Lee Jun was shocked by the presence of the goblin, armed with a long sword, looking around as if it had heard an unusual noise. This scene clarified to Lee Jun that he was in a dungeon. Goblins are the lowest-ranking monsters, usually misjudged and taken lightly by hunters. But this malnourished hulk of an elf could pose a life-threatening danger, which is why they are known as beginners hunter-killers. This creature had an exceptional sense of smell and hearing, combined with its reckless hunting style. They slayed ignorant beginners without any information. A lot of them died by their hands. Lee Jun hid, hoping that the goblin wouldn't see him. The goblin turned his head with an evil smile, looking at the place Lee Jun had hidden. The goblin began to approach Lee Jun, who was hiding, hoping that the goblin wouldn't find him. Lee Jun, seeing that the goblin wasn't retreating, reached out for a rock from the ground. Seeing this, Lee Jun didn't have a choice but to trust in the training he had undergone with SEO Gaiyong, his protector. Making a quick decision, Lee Jun threw the rock behind the goblin, getting its attention and diverting it from him. The goblin turned to find out what caused the sound. Lee Jun reached out his hand and grabbed the hand of the goblin holding the long sword. Lee Jun was intending to scare the goblin and take its sword, but the result of beheading reassured him he was now a hunter. Supporters, transcendent beings that gave hunters abilities, had paid attention to Lee Jun. This scene surprised Lee Jun, seeing the tab notifying him that the Hall of Heaven was paying attention to him. More goblin reinforcements arrived at the area where Lee Jun attacked. Creeping and screeching noises of teeth resounded. They rushed armed with weapons and eyes filled with bloodlust on their faces. Lee Jun felt vibrations on the ground with sounds of over 100 reinforcements approaching. Lee Jun thought to himself, did the rest of the goblins hear him? The whole goblin gang had arrived, their eyes blood red. At the back, there was a huge goblin bigger than a grown human. The presence of this large goblin frightened Lee Jun, who had never seen this many goblins in one place, let alone a goblin chieftain. This made cold sweat drip down his face. The appearance of the goblin chieftain shocked and terrified Lee Jun. Lee Jun recalled how his guardian and protector, SEO Hyung, had praised him for holding the Demon King autobiography when he faced Athena alone. He was filled with anger, thinking he was about to break his promise to Sung Hyung that if he had the power, he would change the world and make it equal for all awakened and non-awakened. Lee Jun charged towards the goblin chieftain, holding a sword with both arms, leaving his initial location like a high school student rushing for food at lunchtime. He dodged the incoming attack of the approaching goblin by swiftly moving to the left. With a powerful swing to the right using the blade, he slashed through the goblin's defense and the club. The system popped up, telling him he had leveled up. He recalled the days he used to train tirelessly with a spear under Sung Hyung's guidance, who praised him for his progress, calling him a genius. Back to the present, Lee Jun continued to level up, leaving a trail of corpses in his wake. All the goblins had been brutally massacred. Lee Jun stood there, his black shirt torn mostly on his left shoulder. The goblins around him lay lifeless, exhausted, sweat dripping down his face, his lungs out of air, and he was taking deep breaths. Saying that, all that is left before he could even finish his words, he saw an incoming attack aiming to headshot him. He deflected the goblin chieftain's incoming barrages of attacks, which threw him backward with force. He did a backflip and landed safely on his feet. Lee Jun, with frustration visible on his face, looked at the goblin chieftain, thinking to himself that even though it's a goblin, it's still a boss monster. We get a clear view of how this goblin chieftain had really jacked up. That's a good gym brother right there. It's written that to defeat a goblin chieftain, you need to be at least a C rank hunter. Li Jun questioned himself if someone like him, who had recently awakened, could kill such a monster. Li Jun tightly grasped the spear with his hand, releasing his aura again. He materialized the spear in his hand, lighting the tip with flames that burned violently. Li Jun stomped downward and launched towards the chieftain. Both charged towards each other, each wanting to end the battle with one move. Li Jun passed through the chieftain, burning it from its chest. The spear was red hot, as if it was forged just a second ago and wasn't cooled. The system panel showed up that he had leveled up again. The spear wasn't able to withstand his new power, and it began turning to ashes. Panting deeply, exhaustion in his eyes, Li Jun had a deep wound on his lower waist. He walked with heavy but unstable steps, thinking that's all he could do before he fell on the ground, blood oozing from his body. Hunters who were supposed to clear this dungeon realized there were goblin corpses, making them wonder who had killed so many goblins, even the goblin chieftain. One of them was able to spot Li Jun, who was lying there still, blood flowing from his body, shouting, "A survivor! There's a survivor here!" Before collapsing, Li Jun saw that the fall of heaven was paying attention to you.